Hi, I'm Anthony for Sydney Backyard Veggies, back out in the patch this afternoon. I'm over at my rocket patch and I planted this patch out a couple of weeks ago, about 4 weeks ago. And now it's at that stage where I need to come through and start thinning out the planting. Even though I did plant it quite thinly at the time, it's actually taken over the whole patch and the plants are starting to compete each other. So today I'm going to come through, do a quick weed of the patch, thin out the plants, and then set it up for harvest in about 2 to 3 weeks time. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that at the moment. So just as a recap, this is the rocket patch that I planted about 4 weeks ago, and I planted it on the north facing side of my garden. Now I did a video of this, of how I planted this out, and I'll put a link in the description notes. I've got, I believe it was 7 rows planted across here at 20 centimeters apart, and I planted these rockets thinly along these rows with the intent that I would come through and thin them out later. That would encourage the plants to put out a larger leaf. There's a fair bit of chickweed growing in between, which I'll get rid of, and just generally speaking, I'm going to come through and just see if I can remove, allow for a centimetre or two, at least a centimetre or two space in between the plants, just to make sure they get quite large. It also is ready for some fertilizer, so after I do that I'll be adding some more nitrogen fertilizer to it, some liquid feed to really help it along. So, but first things first, I'm going to come through, and as you can see, yeah, when I've planted them out, they've bundled up quite a lot. So the idea is I'll be coming through and just removing, yeah, most of those plants, just allow for 1 or 2 in this little batch here, so it's easy for them to grow. I'm going to come through now and start thinning out this patch. So coming through the rows, I'm just going to first of all just remove a lot of these thread weeds and a lot of this chickweed in between each of the plants. Now the key is, because I plant them in rows, it's actually easier to identify which are weeds, because the weeds generally are growing in between the rows. Now coming over to here, I'm going to essentially try to see if I can pick 3 or 4 of the strongest plants, ones with the most spacings, and just clearing out what other weak plants there are. So just progressively getting rid of what's not. And this stuff here, look, I mean, you can still eat it, but I'm going to feed it to the chooks. It's a bit of extra feed, but generally speaking, I'm just trying to thin that down to about 3 or 4 plants, and ideally, yeah, we'll get rid of this one. And so you end up having, so that's how I thinned it out. So you got 1, 2, 3 plants there, and that's gives them a little bit more space in between each of the plants. Now I find this actually is quite crucial. It looks pretty drastic, but I find this is crucial if you want to get a larger leaf rocket. If you keep them too close together, you'll end up getting small leaf like rocket, and it's not what I'm trying to get out of my patch. I actually want the larger leaves. So continuing through, I'll continue to thin it out, and I'll show you then result. So now I've finished doing the thinning, and the plants do look a bit worse for wear, but they're going to thank me for it once they start producing. The leaves will be nice and large. Done the big weed as well. What I need to do through now is actually give them a really good water, and they should spruce up tomorrow. Overnight they should just settle back in, and tomorrow they'll be fine. I will be adding some liquid fertilizer to the watering can. I'll make sure I give them a bit of a water, and then they should be good to go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually coming over here to the left hand side, and here I planted previously my batch of coriander. Now what's happened is the big rains came through and washed out all that bed, but the seedlings still germinated. You can see there's all these seedlings here. So what I'm actually planning on doing is transplanting all these seedlings, and I've got a new spot just over here which I'm going to be transplanting them over to. So we're going to try to do that. Now generally speaking, I don't like to transplant coriander, but I'm going to give it a go. I've done it in the past and it has worked. going to try to grab as many as I can, transplant them over into rows over that spot, and then put my new coriander patch there, because I'm looking at actually planting loose leaf lettuce in this patch here, so I can start making more solids from produce at home. So I'm going to come through and start transplanting these seedlings, starting from the left. I'll try to space them out at about 10 centimeters apart. Let's put it in. Now these are going to need a deep watering and also some shade cloth just to let them settle in, because it is going to be, this has been quite dramatic, this transplanting. But what I'll do is just make sure they've got a little bit of an indentation there around the site, not making sure you don't cover the growing tip, and when I water that they should settle in. So I'm going to continue planting. Next one, so about 10 centimeters apart. Generally speaking, I don't like transplanting, but the seedlings are there. Transplant like this should work. So I'll continue on transplanting, and I'll show you the final layout. So I just finished planting out the rest of those seedlings, and now I've got almost a full bed here. I've watered them in, and I'm going to keep my eye on them. Look, I'm hoping that most of them will strike and they will continue growing, and I got quite confident they will. I've done this in the past, but just we'll see. If it's really, really hot tomorrow, I will put down some shade cloth, and I'll make sure they keep being well watered. But it's just started coming into dusk now, so I'm going to have to pack up for today, and tomorrow I'll get back into the patch and I'll start planting my lettuces back over there in the corner and my shallots in the back there. So I'm back out in the garden again. This is the next day, and I'm over at my coriander patch, and as you can see just in the back there, they've settled in quite well. I had a bit of shade structure there today just to take the edge of the heat, the sun off them, but they've done quite well, and we'll monitor them for a few more days, and before I let them take the full brunt of the sun. I'm going to be planting some shallots, spring onions in the back there just against that fence, and I'll take you through how I'm going to plant them out. Generally speaking, I grow my own seedlings to plant out for my spring onions, but generally takes about 6 to 8 weeks for me to get into a size where I'd like to transplant them. So I've gone and bought some seedlings, and this punnet's probably got in the order of 50, 60 shallots, and it cost me about $6. To be able to plant these out, I actually need to wash the soil off the roots, and you know, they're quite durable, these plants, and when you wash them with their roots, you can actually pry them apart. And once I've pried them apart, I'll end up with a bunch of separated seedlings, as you can just see right there. And what I'm going to do is actually plant these seedlings out. And I like to plant them out in bunches of 4, because I find that I can harvest normally 4 spring onions at a time. So what I'm going to do now is I take them at spring onions for it in a bundle of 4. But what I will do is actually trim the root balls to make them easier to plant. Now this again won't hurt the plants. This is actually quite fine, and they're quite durable. And I will trim the seedlings back to about that deep. And that makes it just easier for you to plant them out. When they've got the longer leaves, longer roots, it's just hard to get them into their planting. So I will go through and cut the roots off all the plants, but I'll make sure you still leave a bit of a stump of the roots still showing, and then I'll plant them out. So I'm planting out my spring onions. What I'm doing is I'm bundling them up into groups of 4, and having dibbled the hole for the seedlings, I'm just plonking it straight in, so you can do there. And I'll just make sure I cut those, and it comes in handy to cut those roots because it makes it easy to actually put them in the hole. And then just filling them up with soil, and just tighten the soil down around the base, and that's it. That's planted. And I'll put that little dibble where I plant the seedlings so that the water can pool around the base of the plants. Now they may lay down a bit, and overnight they will spring back up, and they should be absolutely fine. Now spring onions are quite durable, you can't really kill them, so you can be quite rough with them and they will do quite fine. So I'm going to continue through. I'm spacing them at about 10 centimeters. I'm probably getting them a bit closer, but for now I'll just plant them at 10 centimeters apart. I'm going to plant all the way across the rest of the back of the fence there. So I've just finished off planting those shallots, and they've all settled in, they've been watered. In the next few days they'll start powering along. Now I've gone and planted in the back there, just against the end of the bed, some excess shallots, and I will end up planting 2 rows. I've got a second punnet which I will plant out there. I will need to go through and now prep. I'll bring you across. I will need to come over and prep this bed here. We're planting loose leaf lettuce here, and I'm going to come through, dig this over, put some compost down, and see if I can get a couple of rows of lettuce seedlings planted out here as well. So I'm back out in the patch this afternoon. We've had constant rain pretty much over the last few days, so there's been finally been a break in the weather. I'm back out in here to plant out my loose leaf lettuce. In this section here, I'm going to plant out some lettuce seedlings. What I am going to be planting in this spot, I didn't have time to raise seedlings, which I normally would do. But what I'm going to be planting is green minaret lettuce. This is a pick and come back variety, loose leaf variety, and it has worked well for me last season. And so to get a head start on this season's lettuce harvest, I've decided to get punnets. I have grown them as seedlings in the past, and it's been great, but you know, there's nothing wrong with going and buying a couple of punnets of seedlings. I'm going to come through now and just quickly plant them out at that 15 to 20 centimeter spacings along the in the bed in a grid pattern. And what I'll do is I'll run my irrigation in between that, but I might just quickly show you what I'm doing, how I'm planting them out, and then we'll go from there. So coming through, I'm just going to separate these multi seedling punnets and just gently taking it out of the plant. Again, I find these seedlings are quite durable, so you know, as long as you can just rip them out with a little bit of a root ball or saw still on it, they should be fine. Separating them out into their individual seedlings. Now I always try to see if I can get buy punnets that have maximum number of seedlings in it, so I can plant out most of the plants. But there you go, that's one seedling there, and I'm going to be planting it out again in my usual place. I'm going to just dip it a hole with the back of my trowel, put it in, and again just make sure I allow just a bit of a depression in the soil so that that the water collects when I water it at the moment. So continuing on at that 20 centimeter spacings, so that I can run the irrigation line in between, but also to be able to weed it more effectively in between the plants. And as these plants grow, they will fill out that space in between, so they do need that space. Just coming through. Try not to cover the growing tip when you're planting them in. There you go. So I've just finished planting out those lettuces, and I've got a nice bed full of them at the moment. So they've all been watered in, and I'm going to let them settle in for about a week or so, and then I'll install the irrigation line and give them their first liquid feed of nitrogen fertilizer. And as I harvest them, I'll come back after every harvest and continue to give them more fertilizer to really encourage them to grow fast and to grow quickly and produce a lot. These will be producing all the way till September, October, when they all start bolting with the change in weather in the daylight hours. But happy they're in, and I might quickly just show you what the final result is for all my beds. So that's my rocket. Again, that's doing absolutely amazing. And this is the final look of how my coriander patch looks. So it's really, really good. So happy, got the whole bed planted out now, and I'm happy that's all done. And hopefully the rain's not too destructive over the next few days. We've got forecasts for a couple of 100 mil coming in, so we'll see how we hold up. And before I wrap up this video, I just wanted to give you a quick update on my main brassica patch. In the last video, I came through and weeded and fertilized this bed, and there has been a lot of growth since then. So I'll quickly show you where my plants are at here. So just coming through my main brassica bed, here at the front I've got my cauliflower, my 4 rows of cauliflower, and they're looking really, really good. Just need to maybe run the wire weeder through just another time, just knock out some of that chickweed that's been growing up. The stars of the patch at the moment are my cabbages, my red cabbage, which is the red queen. They're looking absolutely amazing. They're just starting to form their heads. Now it's a bit crucial at the moment to make sure I stay on top of the slugs and snails, because with all this rain we're having, I'm just worried that the slugs will start coming into the heads, and once they are in the heads it's almost impossible to get them out, but we'll keep monitoring those. Coming across my green coronet cabbages, again they're looking really, really good. As you can see, that they are just starting to form their heads, so still going well. They responded really well to the fertilizer. And over here my broccoli, again, if you come through, there's a couple of beautiful heads showing. I'll be harvesting these in about 7 days time. I've still got a few stragglers in the back there, but generally speaking this bed will be harvested in about 7 days, and I will be planting at this stage more broccoli in this spot. So really happy with how that looks, and it's the last final view of the whole patch and how it's going.